Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there. Speaking of bird flu, just in, health expert calls on Biden to... So this is that Leana Wen. She was wrong about everything. By the way, she's very sketchy.
Yeah.
Her background, very sketchy. Very sketchy. Meaning she's being pushed along by the permanent state, should we say?
Yeah.
Justin, health expert, Leana Wen, who was wrong about everything.
And said so. Remember her kids were damaged by the mask?
She was like, oh, yeah, it turns out my kids got damaged by... Yeah, your kids who were at almost a 0% risk of anything from COVID, you made them wear a frickin' mask, your child? Based on nothing, by the way, based on nothing. There was never a study that said you should mask children.
You're not supposed to look at that. You're not a scientist. You can't read.
And you're not supposed to do that. So she came out and she finally, I think it wasn't until like 2023, she said, hey, you know what? Masking kids probably not that smart because my kids are now developmental. She stunted her kids' development.
Well, that's why India is going to replace them.
Yeah. Ha. Justin, health expert, calls on Biden to immediately authorize bird flu vaccines and send out millions of doses as fast as possible. She's insisting Joe Biden, the president, with no recollection of having been in D.C., should immediately authorize bird flu vaccinations to avoid the next staged pandemic.
Yeah.
So the last pandemic, they made everybody afraid of COVID. Go ahead and Google what the death rate is with the infection fatality rate from COVID was. So if you ask like Grok or ChatGPT, it comes up anywhere between 0.03 and 0.5%. So
Bill Gates told me
the high end estimate is 0.5%.
Yeah.
And that's mostly people, the elderly, average age of death from COVID, 82, and they had all these comorbidities. You know, like Bill Gates said, a lot like the flu.
I just go by what he said, which was it wasn't that big a deal. Most of the old people died. It was a lot like the flu, though a little different. Because we made it in a lab.
After Bill Gates cashed in his stock for $550 million from Pfizer, he then said, well, you know, we didn't know that at the beginning that COVID had a low fatality rate.
Yeah.
How low? Go ahead. Ask your ChatGPT or your Grok on Twitter. Ask what the infection fatality rate was. It was so low that everyone should be outraged. They're not. People are. I still talk to my liberal friends in Hollywood. They're still upset at Joe Rogan, but they're not upset at Dr. Fauci, who we all know funded the gain of function that produced the COVID virus, and he lied about it. And he had to do it through a CIA cutout called Echo Health. They're not mad at him. They still think he's a great, like a deity. They're still angry at Joe Rogan and me, by the way.
They made Catholic votive candles of Fauci.
Yes. Don't you think?
But MAGA's crazy. But that's totally normal.
So, and listen, Leana, I don't want to throw a wet blanket on top of this pharmaceutically induced high that you're on right now. But has it occurred to you that the people who hired you to lie to us might also be lying to you too? You ever think about that?
Counting on it, probably. So after your kid gets screwed up from the last one, to actually come out and be on board with the next one, that means it's intentional and you're not just stupid. That means you are an intentional criminal and not just like a dumbass that didn't know, like one of my friends from New York.
Back to this.
What should be happening in the Biden administration right now that isn't going on? Yeah, there are two main things that they should be doing in the days that they have left. The first is to get testing out there. I feel like we should have learned our lesson from COVID that just because we aren't testing, it doesn't mean that the virus isn't there. It just means that we aren't looking for it.
That's the lesson?
That was the lesson from COVID?
Whoa.
What are you, Rumsfeld? Hey, Asian Rumsfeld. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. She just repackaged that.
Should be having rapid tests, home tests available to all farm workers, to their families, for the clinicians taking care of them so that we aren't waiting for public labs and CDC labs to tell us what's bird flu or not. And the second very important thing is...
And then what happens if they have bird flu? You know what? Just like if you had COVID, did they have a treatment for it? Yeah, they actually had monoclonals. They actually suppressed early treatments, said they didn't work.
They couldn't even lie and say that was poison monoclonals.
Yeah.
Fauci had to go, I don't know why there aren't more of them around.
I don't know why
they banned them.
Yeah, why aren't they using monoclonals more? And then they started cutting off the states that were using them.
Yeah.
So, okay, here we go, more.
This is not like the beginning of COVID where we were dealing with a new virus, we didn't have a vaccine. There actually is a vaccine developed already against H5N1. The Biden administration has contracted with manufacturers to make almost 5 million doses of the vaccine. However, they have not asked the FDA to authorize the vaccine. There's research done on it. They could get this authorized now and also get the vaccine out and to farm workers and to vulnerable people. I think that's the right approach because we don't know what the Trump administration is going to be doing around bird flu. If they have people coming in with anti-vaccine stances, could they hold up vaccine authorization? If they don't want...
What is she doing? I don't understand what she's doing. She's being paid. My guess is she's being paid again by someone to say something. And so she's saying
best case. That's best case.
Best case. And they bring out someone who was wrong about everything they said about COVID. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the lesson that we learned from COVID is that you have to test more. So you test and then what?
The test didn't work the last time.
And then
though.
what? But so and then what?
Concentration camp. You heard Noam Chomsky.
Right. That like Noam Chomsky. Then you should go to a concentration camp.
I know how much bird flu is out there. Could they withhold testing? I mean, that's a possibility. And I think the Biden administration in the remaining days should get testing and vaccines widely available so that at least it empowers state and local health officials and clinicians to do the right thing for their patients.
Dr. Wen, is bird flu in humans super dangerous?
Well, the World Health Organization...
Is it super dangerous? Is it super dangerous?
Organization estimates that in prior outbreaks of the bird flu, that the mortality rate is 52%. 52%. However, in this most recent outbreak, it seems that most cases have been mild.
Oh, that's so weird. So she just said that the fatality rate from bird flu is 52%. Except right now it's not.
This time. And also every other time, because I've never heard of it being 52%.
Except this time it's very mild.
So most of the time it's fatal. That's what 52% means.
That's what 52% means.
But in this case,
it's
100% of it is mild.
52%? What is it, Ebola?
Maybe some people even have asymptomatic infection. But the question...
Some people even have asymptomatic infection. How do you know that?
You never know who has it. You'll never be able to know.
How do you?
They can be anywhere.
So they have it, but they don't actually have any symptoms.
Well, who gives a shit then?
But I guess they're part of the 48%.
Yeah.
That don't die from it. This is unbelievable.
It's intentional. She's intentionally doing this.
And by the way, we already showed you Dr. Redfield, the former CDC director, said that the way they're going to make this be infectious, they're going to do gain of function research to make it jump from birds to humans. That's what he said.
Yeah, like they do with all of them.
That's right.
All of them, including Ebola. I don't believe someone had sex with a monkey. I don't believe someone was chopping chimp meat in the jungle. Those all sound just like racist nonsense things to cover the fact that they did this.
You don't think it was a Chinese wet market?
No one had sex with a Pokemon.
You don't think someone was banging a pangolin?
They ate a dirty bat wing.
Here we go.
Is we don't know what happens when bird flu affects more vulnerable individuals. People infected so far in the US have been mainly farm workers who are working, presumably generally healthy, as opposed to what happens when you get to children,
Well,
Children with the
she just did it again. We just covered the one case so far that we've covered on this show. There was a child they said tested positive for bird flu. Symptoms very mild, and
also they're not sure it's bird flu.
And then a couple days later, they couldn't find any traces of the bird flu, but they could find traces of a regular virus that people have. That's what you mean, Kurt? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we covered the story,
Yes.
and not only was it inconclusive that it was even fucking bird flu,
Yeah.
it was fine.
women to older individuals with chronic illnesses. We don't know how deadly, how dangerous bird flu is going to be for those individuals. And again, that's one more reason why we don't want it to spread and acquire more mutations.
Okay, so again, this idea that you can stop. Remember, they were like, oh, we got to stop the spread of COVID. Everybody got COVID. And they always knew. They knew that that vaccine was what they called non-sterilizing. Or as Dr. Robert Malone said on our show in early 2021, that it was a leaky vaccine, meaning you could get vaccinated and still catch it and still transmit it. And now she's pretending like we're going to be able to stop another virus. That's what she's saying.
Well, thank God that Biden might pardon Fauci ahead of time, because we're going to need his help more than ever.
So Dr. Leana Wen is so much of an expert, she harmed her own child with her advice and then complained like it was somebody else's fault. CNN medical analyst who fiercely advocated masking now admits it harmed her own son's development.
Wait, now hold on, Jimmy. Vivek Pastrami told me that the culture of Asia is so superior.
Yes.
But you're saying her child's slower now and not, in fact, outpacing.
That's just one of the demands of the cult. You have to sacrifice one of your own kids. That you didn't know that?
Right. I forgot. I totally forgot that.
That's of course what that is.
And by the way, for the record, I've been in China. That tiger mom thing that Vivek was talking about is not a thing there. That's in America. That is not in China. They had a one-child law. They spoiled their kids so much that they started calling them little emperors. That's their millennials.
Dr. Simon Godek says in September 2021, Wen demanded that the unvaccinated should not be allowed to leave their homes. That was in September 2021. We already knew by that point. We already knew for a fact, we knew it on this show way earlier, that everyone was going to get COVID. It was just a matter of when. And so what does it matter if you get COVID from a vaccinated person or an unvaccinated person? We already knew that the vaccine didn't stop transmission. We already knew all that by the time she was saying this. You know how I know that? Because Joe Biden's COVID czar, the head of COVID response, Andy Slavitt, said so. That COVID is so infectious that everyone's going to get it. That was in July of 2021? Early August, maybe he said that? But I had Dr. Robert Malone on my show, I think in June of 2021, and he explained that it was what they call a leaky vaccine and that you can't vaccinate your way out of this pandemic. And of course, he was right. Everybody got vaccinated and everybody got COVID.
I got it right after I got vaccinated.
In fact, I got COVID 3 times.
My score is 2-1. You lost. What are you, 2 and 3?
So this statement lacks support from available data to this day. It appears that you can take China-born Leana Wen out of the communism, but you can't take communism out of Leana.
So she was born in China.
I don't know what communism has to do with her about getting this wrong. CNN's Leana Wen, the unvaccinated should not be allowed to leave their homes. There it is.
Well, the state being God, there's no God. So
that's it. I got you. That's right.
So I was going to guess Canada and not even China.
You have the option to not. By the way, they had another Was it a Chinese medical professional in charge of the COVID in Canada? Eh?
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong? Another female, right?
Yeah.
China's probably freer than Canada, by the way.
We have the option to not get vaccinated if you want, said Leana Wen, but then you can't go out in public. Why? We already knew. So again, these are the people out there, and they're still bringing them on TV to talk about why do you think she has a front seat on corporate news that's sponsored by Big Pharma? Why do you think that is?
Because she's an expert.
Because she's an expert? In April of 2021, Leana Wen labeled people who chose not to vaccinate themselves or their children as anti-science. COVID never posed any risk to children or adolescents. It was, according to New York Magazine, it was less of a threat, COVID, to children than the flu was. It was.
Oh, she's the former president of Planned Parenthood. Did you know that?
Yet she pushed for getting children vaccinated, and she's trying to do it again. Exactly. We need to make it clear that vaccination reduces your chance of getting infected with COVID-19 and thus of transmitting it. So this is all garbage. So it does when you say it reduces your chances of getting it, you mean that everyone who got vaccinated got it anyway? You mean like that? And we knew this by then. She's saying this in July 31st of 2021. Well, here's Andy Slavitt. And what's the date on this? The date on this is August 14th. So this is Joe Biden's. He says, given this is Delta. And the fitness of future mutations in order to beat it. This means SARS-CoV-2 will be contagious enough that everyone will get the virus, which is the question we always asked at this show. So then what does it matter if you get it from a vaccinated person, because we know vaccinated people can transmit it, or if somebody who's not, everybody's going to get
Jimmy,
it.
You get it slower. It slows it.
So she says, we need to make clear. So she's pushing that idea that if you get vaccinated, it'll stop the virus, which was always a lie.
Could I
your
just tell
your chance of getting infected with COVID-19 and thus transmitting it, vaccinated people around other vaccinated people is much safer than around those unvaccinated.
Jimmy, I can explain
the
this
key to
real
stopping
quick.
the pandemic, vaccination. Well, that was always a lie. Because everybody got vaccinated and the pandemic didn't go away.
Ready for this? Wen became involved in U.S. international health policy during medical school, serving in Geneva, Switzerland, as a fellow for the World Health Organization, and in Rwanda as a fellow for the U.S. Department of Defense. In addition, she advised Congress, blah, 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 intel, liar, spook. That's what she is. She's a plant. She works in the Department of Defense. Is probably connected to every bad thing you can think of. That's why she's knowingly lying. Probably don't even have a kid.
Now, of course, I have to tell you that according to the YouTube science, that while the vaccine does not stop transmission or contraction, it certainly slows it.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means. And it will stop you from getting dead or seriously ill and hospitalized. That's what.
Unless it doesn't.
That's the YouTube science. I have to tell you that. But I also
didn't help Susan.
I could also tell you that here's Joe Biden's official head of COVID response saying everyone's going to get it.
Right.
But we're just going to get it slower, apparently.
Oh, yeah, that's
she
great.
said the key to stopping the pandemic, vaccination. Here he is saying, no, you can't stop it. Everybody's going to get it.
Well, let's draw out look, if you draw out a pandemic, then you can maintain control longer, can't you?
Last but not least, take a moment to revisit the 2021 interview where she openly admitted that vaccine passports for travel aren't about safety, but are a tool to coerce people into getting the shot. She advocated for a Chinese-style social credit system enforced by the federal government and even claimed that traveling isn't a constitutional right.
She came from asylum seekers from China. You know that?
No.
So her family didn't like China?
I absolutely think we should have that requirement. I think it was a major oversight on the part of the Biden administration to not issue this yesterday. And we have to talk about the reason. The reason isn't so much that we need to keep our train travel and plane travel even safer. They are pretty safe, although I definitely think that having a vaccine requirement would make it even safer and probably encourage many people who are vaccinated or who have young kids and want to protect them. Maybe it'll help to encourage those people to start traveling again. But there's an even bigger reason too, which is I think we really need to make it clear that there are privileges associated with being an American, that if you wish to have these privileges, you need to get vaccinated. Travel and having the right to travel interstate, it's not a constitutional right as far as I know,
Wow.
to board a plane. And so saying that if you want to stay unvaccinated, that's your choice. But if you want to travel, you better go get that vaccine.
Again,
deport this bitch.
Again, I never understood the logic there. So if the vaccine works, why do you need someone else to take it for it to work on you? If you got vaccinated, don't you feel protected? Why would you need someone else? That never made sense to me. I saw somebody do a joke. It's like, I'm going to go out drinking, but I need you to drink too so I can get drunk.
Yeah.
I never understood that.
Well, it destroys your individuality little by little, which is the goal with this. You can't see it in the video, but Jeffrey Toobin is actually masturbating while she's saying that.
I'm Jeffrey Toobin.
I'm being a better person. I'm working at soup kitchens.
And they're
now.
still bringing this woman on as if she's some kind of expert on bird flu virus or any virus.
She's a DOD. She's a fellow at the DOD. Aren't you comforted to know as an American that you got somebody like that who was directly involved in your Department of Defense?
So these screenshots speak louder than 1,000 words. This woman has nothing good in mind. She despises us. She's a communist globalist who wants us diminished. I wonder what people mean when they say communist. Do they mean like
Fabian socialist? They mean Fabian socialist, which is not Marxist socialist. It's Fabian socialist whose symbol is literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. So the Fabian socialists wanted to, little by little, what they really want is techno-feudalism, I guess would be the term if you need to know a term. But it's not communism Marxist. It's Fabian socialism. It comes out of England.
So what? So there she is, the World Economic Forum, and she's the head of Planned Parenthood. She's got a lot going on.
That was in 2018.
Professor of Health and sorry, Steph.
No, go ahead.
Professor of Health and Policy Management at George Washington University. That's who gets to go to school to get opportunities and probably don't have no school loans. Some chick that your DOD or the Intel people brought in specifically because they're America's a state and a larger entity. It's not a country.
And so here's one more thing I want to show you. This is very interesting. He says, did you know that Dr. Leana Wen has been a crisis actor? No, I don't know what that means. Since the Boston Marathon bombings. This is what he's saying. I'm just reporting to you what he's saying. I can't vouch for the veracity of this. I'm not vouching for the veracity of this assertion. Mm-hmm. But in the attached video, you can see her performing in front of a green screen. Why her, might you ask? This is from remember the Boston bombings? When was that? Like 2010?
I already know where this is going because of the DOD thing. I just looked at it on Wikipedia. I already know where this is going to go. Go ahead, play it. I bet I know.
Oh, I don't have that either?
Oh.
Leana Wen, she's an emergency room physician who was working at Massachusetts General Hospital the day of the terror attack. She also works at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So you were at Massachusetts General Monday.
Are they standing in front of a green screen? It looks like it, but I can't.
Yes, they are. I promise you they are, because CNN, all the news is so goddamn fake. Dude, it's way beyond being a crisis actor what she is.
What happened?
Oh, it was a horrific day. we had no idea what was coming. It was 3 o'clock and we heard that there were 2 explosions, but we didn't know where. We had no idea how many people were coming to us.
How many people came?
It seemed like dozens, and it was. It was probably nearly 3 dozen patients. And
that is curious. That is curious that she was the CNN's go-to person on the Boston bombings, and now even though she got everything wrong during COVID, they bring her on to talk about bird flu. And this El Gato Malo, he says Leana Wen is a crisis shill. Note what she's pushing here: more of the same bad testing used in COVID to overstate a disease and cause a panic. 2, another non-sterilizing, non-vaccine that does not work to be pushed on the vulnerable. Now, it's certainly a vaccine because they changed the definition of vaccine.
Yeah.
So now that is so the COVID vaccine was a vaccine.
That's right.
So I think
Definitions change, Jimmy.
definitions change, El Gato Malo. And when you say it doesn't work, what do you mean? You mean like it doesn't stop you from getting the virus you're being vaccinated against? Well,
Right.
that's no longer the standard for if a vaccine works.
Right.
The standard is, does it create an immune response? Not
Sometimes
that it,
one a little too strong.
and that so anyway, number 3, doing it right now under emergency youth authorization, so whomever makes these tests and jabs can cash in and be shielded from liability. She said we already have these vaccines. So I don't know if it would be under emergency use authorization. Claiming that proxies like triggers antibody production demonstrates clinical efficacy, and it's just one last smash and grab for cash before the branded administration ends. That's according to El Gato Malo. No, I can't vouch for the veracity of El Gato Malo, of what he's saying. I'm just saying that's what people are saying.
Well,
Of
he
course,
goes, what are her conflicts of interest? Who's paying her here or giving her grants? Remember how you say the call's coming from inside the house?
That's right.
El Gato, America's doing that to you. They're bringing these people. They had nothing but sinister intentions, and that's why they use crisis actors. It's not just her. I want to make that clear. She is a tentacle on a larger entity.
Okay. Again, I can't stress enough that the COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective. It's super vaccine-like. It's a
It
vaccine.
shouldn't make you concerned
by the
we have to say
definition. Go look in the dictionary. Not a dictionary from 2019. Look at a dictionary from this year, and it is a vaccine. Look at the definition.
Hey,
Don't look at a definition from a dictionary from like the 2010.
That's anti-science, possibly anti-Semitic. I haven't checked, but I bet it is.
Yeah, those old dictionaries were anti-science. The new ones have the correct definition of a vaccine, and the COVID-19 vaccine falls under that definition.
Yeah, and stop being racist too.
And don't be racist or white supremacist. And although the vaccine does not stop transmission or contraction, and it was most likely created in a lab funded by Dr. Fauci, who lied about it to Congress twice, ignore all that, because the vaccine will keep you from getting seriously ill, hospitalized, or dead. And that's what the CDC and the FDA say.
Do you still have to say that?
I'm not taking chances. Hey, I'm a big fan of Morning Kick. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I know I did. I recently saw a video that he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. That's for real. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. That's how old I am. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Jimmy. chuckdefense.com/Jimmy, or by clicking the link below in this video. It'll change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Jimmy, and click on the link in the description below to watch the video. You won't believe how simple it is. I watched the video. I watched it. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old, and he's got more energy than me. That's true. He discovered he could, create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below. chuckdefense.com/Jimmy. Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.